pleasant good evening to all. Thank you for joining me tonight as we visit the sounds of the diaspora. This is the sounds of the diaspora, artist to artist, a conversation with Dion Parson. And I'm really excited tonight to have a wonderful, amazing, talented musician on tonight joining me. Let's give a warm welcome to the one and only Mr. Reuben Rogers.
What's up? What's up, D?
Reuben, how you doing?
Doing great, brother. Doing really, really good. Doing really,
It's
really
good
good.
to see you this week, man, after hanging out with you last week in St. Thomas.
Unfortunately, it's not quite the same weather as it was there last week, but
You're back in Santa Cruz, California, I see.
yeah, people think California can be always balmy. Actually, it's beautiful weather, but it's a little chilly. It's a little chilly. A lot more chillier than St. Thomas. Let's say that.
Oh yeah. Last time I saw you we were taking a dip in the beach before we head out, but
Oh my gosh.
you have to go to the water, man. That's one of the pleasures of being back at home, man. I enjoy going to the beach on a regular.
Yep. Every day I'm there. I bless it. Definitely. I bless that beach.
Well,
sure.
man, thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule to join me tonight as we visit the sounds of the diaspora. I know you have a lot going on in your world, and some of the folks listening to us and tuning in are probably saying, who's Reuben Rogers? What's going on with Reuben Rogers? So let's talk about, or why don't you share with our audience a bit about how you got into music?
Okay. All right. Well, where do we start? Well, I grew up in the Virgin Islands, as you know, St. Thomas Virgin Islands, and I started in the church. Like a lot of us have. I started in the church, but I should rewind a little bit, I guess. I started actually playing the clarinet, as you know. You always tease me about that. I dabbled a little. Yes, I dabbled a little bit in to find my way to the bass. I dabbled a little bit with, I guess, guitar, drums, piano, and all that. I started playing clarinet, and I actually excelled at it for a while, in the concert band at Ali the Cancrine. Went to CHS. Actually, a fun fact is that the our mentor, Georgia Francis, came to audition me at the Adelita Cancrine School to go into the concert band, but she had a ulterior motive also that I found out much later, that she had heard that I played bass in my church, groups, right? And I had a serious air at the time, and so she actually was like, okay, yeah, you did good on the clarinet, but what about the bass? Can you let me hear you on the bass? Can you read? That's our first thing. I was like, no, I can't read no bass club. I can't read. All I know is playing by ear. So her thing was like, well, I need a bass player in the jazz band. Why don't you try and learn to play bass? Why don't you learn to read?
You're playing treble clef, clarinet, and trying to figure out the bass clef at the same time.
Exactly. And and here enters Dion Parson and Ron Blake. That same summer is when she said, well, you're gonna learn also, you can in real time come to this summer program and check out this jazz stuff that's going on at the school. And well, I got bit with the jazz bug then, and it somehow never left my bloodstream, so it's
wow.
So that's kind of in a nutshell how I got started. I started in on my pursuit in music. I didn't know at that time obviously it was going to be my life, but it was definitely coming from the church and doing the concert band stuff, going into Charlotte Maya. Of course, I started to play in the jazz band, and I did learn to read and all that, and it was great because I was around actually at that time a few young great musicians who were very hungry at the same time as me to just learn about music, a lot of things. So I was thrown into the fire pretty quickly with like-minded, musicians, even in high school. And fortunately, Georgia, Miss Francis, then I could call her Georgia now because I'm a grown man. I mean, she really pushed me a lot. She saw something in me I didn't know anything about, and she encouraged me and would, you know, give me books and have certain features for me to like challenge myself to practice, because I hated practicing at that time. And she sent me away to Manhattan School of Music to learn there, where I met, you know, a bunch of musicians that I even know now. Interlaken, she sent me there also. She got some money together to go to the summer program before I went to Berkeley. And to sum it up, when I got to Berkeley, I didn't have an upright bass, right? I always wanted to play upright bass, but I didn't have one. And once again, Miss Georgia Francis showed up. Her class of, I forget what class her graduating class, got money together for me to purchase my first upright bass. Even while I was in college, she was still looking up for me. So big up to Georgia Francis for all of that. So, you know, that's the beginning in a nutshell, right? Did I cover it all?
Yeah. You know, you did. Thanks for sharing my gratitude for Miss Francis, because she is a gem. You know, she's been there for so many musicians, so many of us. I met Georgia Francis my senior year in high school. When that was her first time coming to Charlotte Mali High School. That was my senior year. And I've got to know her a lot. As a matter of fact, I used to check in. I would be, you know, coming home, you know, after being on tour and stuff. And I was like, I'm coming. She's like, yeah, this young kid, Reuben, man, you got to talk to him. You got to talk, man. He can play, but he's a knucklehead.
But you know, I always remember the first time you came to the, I guess I think we had some, you know, some interaction during the summer program, but I remember this one time, I don't know if it was with the jazz band on the summer or was during the school year, but there was Green Dolphin Street we were trying to play, and you were standing or sitting next to me, you know, looking at the music, checking out what I was playing, you know, and I was messing up the rhythms, and you were like, hey, no, it goes like this. No. I was like, what, man, what this dude? But I always remember that Green Dolphin, and you'd be like, nah, this the rhythm. Like, yeah, do. I'm like,
nah, man, some fun times. I mean, it's really good to hear those stories, man. But you know, you left St. Thomas. I remember your trip through New York to Berkeley.
Oh,
you know, that infamous jam session in New York with Roy Hargrove.
You know what? I've told that story a few times, but do you remember any of it? Any of that story?
I remember the story, but it's your story to tell. So I'm not gonna put it out there. Listen, you know what I loved about it is you got so mad that night. You know, you were so mad that night, and the next time I saw you, you had it upright, and you were like, "Yo, check me out now." And
I mean, well, in a nutshell, you know, thank God, you know, first impression isn't a lasting impression all the time, right? You know, right. You know, hopefully you learn when you fall flat on your face, you learn from that experience, and you can pick yourself up, and you know.
And I think Georgia Francis was there that night also, right?
She was there also, randomly, actually, right?
Yeah, because you were coming through. She was visiting family. It was a session with Roy Hargrove, Dwayne Burner was on bass.
Yes.
Ron Blake, myself on drums. I think Mark Harry was on piano.
Stellar band. I mean, in a nutshell, for y'all, let's cut to the chase. Basically, I sat in on Dwayne Burner's bass, and I remember that time I couldn't play the upright bass. His strings were like 5 feet from the board. You know, he didn't play with no amp, I think, at that time, and it was just too much. I was in over my head, to say the least. And we, you know, they said they called "So What," you know, "So What" is the great Miles Davis tune, and they put it fast. You know, I remember that, and I just couldn't hang. I was like, and then everyone, the feeling I remember is that guys, you know, I think luckily it was you and maybe Ron, and y'all had grace with this situation and was like, okay, he ain't hanging, but we're not going to douse his flame
Well,
too much.
we knew what you could do. I mean, you know, hey, you never played upright bass. It was like, I'm surprised you even got up there, man. You was like, oh yeah, I want to play, you know. But the thing was, fast forward, like the next time I heard you, you were like dealing. I was like, wow. Okay. Look at me say, yeah. What do you think now? You know, you had that like, you know, arrogance, like, but well, not arrogance, confidence, like, you know, you put some time in because
we can call it confident arrogance. Yeah, we can call it that.
Put some time in because I'll be honest with you, I've seen guys in that situation just crash and burn, and you never hear from them again. But leaving St. Thomas, coming to New York, like landing in New York, coming to this session with, you know, all the cats and being thrown up there and never playing the upright before. Hey, not everybody could have hanged, man. I look at you now, man.
Well, I mean, let's say I had played some. I just didn't own one. Let's just say that I played a couple of people's stuff, bass, and there was this cat.
But it's a different technique if you're not doing it every day.
No, just like anything. If you don't, no. So you're right. I didn't know. I was an electric bass player and that was trying to hang. But I tell you, you know, that leaving that session, going to Boston, literally the weeks after that changed my life. You know, because I mean, really, I thought I was going to Boston for 4 years and going back to St. Thomas. Why would I not go back to Paradise? Right? You know, I didn't even know.
The same thing too. It took me 30 years to get back.
So, I mean, but the great thing about it, I think, is I was naive of the possibilities of what lied ahead or what could be, you know, a career in music, which I'm thankful for that. It was that time that happened, because if it was different now, you everything is in front of your face, you know what's there, you can see it every day, you know. So that gives you a different certain I don't know, a little different kind of hunger, you know, a different kind of, you know, enlightenment to what's going on. So to say, when I got to Boston, the day I stepped foot into Berklee College of Music, someone saw me with a bass on my back, and they're like, "That's bass?" I like, "Yep." They're like, "All right, there's a session in room 27. If you want to play, come play with us." And I swear it was like, from that day on, from the first day I stepped on that campus, I played with all kinds of people, all kinds of music, you know, for the first time in my life, in you know, all walks of life, all shades of people. And I think that development really shaped me in a certain kind of way. Just those few years there just kind of just turned my whole life around, musically, personally, and it set me on the path that I am today, for sure. You know.
Yeah, it's great, man. I remember you being in college, and I used to get phone calls from McLean. Hey, Dion, what's going on with Reuben? He's never around. He doesn't come to class, man. You need to talk to him. I'll try to be like somewhere around the world. He'd be like, "Yo, man, I've been gone for 2 months."
I mean, hey, you know what? I figured it out, though. I mean, as I said, I got thrown in the fire, and I was really fortunate early on to have, you know, opportunities to travel. That was the thing that was, you know, I was so naive about that. I could actually travel, it be paid for, and get paid.
And you know what I mean? School.
I still, well, but that any of that could even happen, you know what I mean? Because I thought the people who did those kind of things were like Michael Jackson and those kind of people. They like, okay, those people want to hear them, so of course they travel and they make money and all that, but not Joe Schmo. Me, I'm just a bass player trying to just put, what they want to hear. You want take me? Or you want to take? You gonna buy my ticket? You know, that's how naive I was. You know.
But it's really interesting because, you know, we coming from the Virgin Islands, coming from the Caribbean, coming from the Afro diaspora, diaspora area of the world, Afro-Caribbean, you know, there's a lot, we're not exposed to music on that level. You know, most of the musicians we know have a day job and they play at night, and that's what it is, and don't talk about making a means for living. You know, it's a small supplement to what they do, but once you know, I know when I went to Interlochen in high school, I got exposed to a lot. And when I came back, I was like, wow, I can do this. I think I could do this. I was really gung-ho about pursuing music. And then when I got into the McDonald's All-American High School Band as a senior and saw the possibilities of traveling just in high school, traveling around the country playing in that band, and talking to the guys that were running the band, and I was like, yeah, this is possible. So, I mean, I knew that you could do it full time, but like you, I was in college when I started touring, and I remember one of the first gigs I went on, I got paid, and the cats looked at me, they was laughing. It's like, yo, you should ask for a raise. And I was like, ask for a raise? You know how much money I made? It was like, yo, bro, we making like 3 times as much as you. I mean, I had no idea, but I was so happy to make what I made at 20 years old.
Right.
And it just kind of opened up a whole nother world from there, just to see the possibilities, like you said, just traveling the world and doing that. And what even made it for me more interesting was like knowing where I came from, knowing the version. I was 32 square miles. Like, okay, this is the information we got growing up. Mind you, this is just this much. And when we went to the States and went to college, we would get like this much information of being exposed to so much, and we just soaking it up. It was,
hungry, the hunger.
Yeah, like, I remember one of your first trips to New York, where you hit me up and you was coming down to play with Carl Allen at Visions. I remember, and I was I was talking to Ron, and I said, yeah, Reuben's gonna be all right. Reuben's gonna be all right. He got past that first base experience. He's gonna be all right.
I mean, if I haven't been able to tell you and Ron about those pivotal years were important. Like, you basically was like, look, here's some keys. If you got some stuff you got to do in the city, just come. You don't worry about it. Just come through. That's like priceless. And actually, I mean, I took advantage of that a few times, until it got to the point where people were like, well, nah, we're gonna pay for you your hotel, and that became the norm.
And you were like, wow, you actually do that?
Exactly. But there was plenty of times where I was like, yeah, man, they were like, yeah, we want you to play, but we ain't got no kind of budget to put you in a hotel. So that was a transition and turning into like a New York musician almost. They were like, we accept you as one of us and you could be here, but you still got to play by the rules of, like, you
got to be in New York.
Yeah, like you live in here, you know what I mean? And I was actually able to pull that off for quite some time, until it got to a point where I was playing with certain people who would pay for me to just come there and be in a hotel, because a lot of them also were out of town also. So it was all part of the band situation. So yeah, man, it's New York was a great stepping stone into the world, until it came time I felt like I wasn't a New York musician anymore, because I was never playing in New York.
And that's the thing. One of the first piece of advice I got, somebody told me, say, man, you want to have a 212 area code. You want to be in New York to be a New York musician, but at the same time, you want to be playing everywhere else.
Right.
And eventually it doesn't matter where you live, because you've established yourself as a New York musician, and that takes you around the world. And you did that pretty well. You did that quite, quickly, because you hooked up with some really good groups. And, tell us about some of the groups that you had the privilege of playing with early in your career as you was making that transition.
Well, I mean, one of the first opportunities for me to actually just get on the road was this great pianist. His name is Marcus Roberts. And he actually was the first to kind of take me under his wing, and he would bring me down to his home in Tallahassee, and we and me and another drummer, we would go there, and actually he would put us up in a Motel 8 or Motel 6. What is it? Motel 6? Motel 8? I don't know, something like that.
Motel 6.
Yeah. And we would have these rehearsals every day for like 4 days, and he would fly me back to Boston. And the thing is, he had heard me when I sat in on one of his gigs in Boston, and he said, you sound good, but basically he was like, you're not ready. Kind of same thing, the same way I was on that jam session. He was like, you sound good, but you're not ready. So check this out. Do this. And he came back 1 year later. Now this is 1994. He came back 1 year later, and he was like, he told me to come down and sit in again. And I sat in, and he was like, oh, you done your homework. All right, come on. Let's go. Let's do some gigs on the road now. And I was like, oh, wow, okay. And that was kind of, things were happening a little bit then, but I'd say as far as in traveling, that was the first time that I started to do gigs out. And then pretty much from there, his former boss was Wynton Marsalis. Shortly after that, I started playing with him and all the crew that had to do with him. And then, it's a chain reaction, but, happens right when you start playing with certain people, certain caliber musicians. And that kind of just branched out, very wide, different cliques and different ways in the music. I was able to actually touch a lot of different scenes that didn't have anything to do with each other, and I think that's the beauty of being a bass player, really, tell you the truth. If you have, a decent feel, a decent decent time, sound, even decent. You don't have to be great, just decent. Because at that time it was just decent, right? And I think the biggest part that I realized later on that probably helped me along was I was relatable. I could bob and weave. My personality was a certain kind of way that I was, I had that confidence, but I was easily able to kind of like adapt socially. You know what I mean?
Well, socially and musically, because growing up in the Caribbean, we're exposed to, before we even get to jazz, we have calypso, reggae, soca, the salsa from the Latin islands. We have zouk music from all of the French islands. We have the Brazilian stuff. I mean, growing up playing with Louis Hill and those guys, jazz that they were playing were more Brazilian and all of that. So before we even got to the Spangalang, we were playing that. We were influenced by that. So I think that's one of the things that I've seen you move through some of this group. As a matter of fact, I remember you coming on the road with Ernest Ranglin with us, doing that, and you fell right into that immediately. And that was like the whole Jamaican, Senegalese, African, Baba Mal, all of that. And the cast was like, yeah, man, he just picked it up. And I said, that's what happened.
Yeah, so, I think that was probably also my I don't know, my superpower, probably. That the versatility was probably what really got me over to do a lot of things, whether it be electric bass or upright bass, which the upright bass end up being a little bit more forefront, as far as in, the opportunities, because once people start to see you in a certain light, see you certain things, they associate you with that. You know what I mean? Right. So there was a time where people knew me just to play electric bass, and then people would know me just to play upright bass. And I mean, even down to a lot of people don't know. I mean, early on, when I was playing a lot of electric bass around, I was in the studios with a lot of these rappers, a lot of R&B guys, from the Kanye West to the Commons to the Lauryn Hills and all of these, so much behind the scene things that half the people don't know but those connections to this day still are there. You know what I mean? But the more I would say no to the R&B and the things that call for more electric things, the more I said no, because I was busy doing jazz things, the more that started to go to the wayside a little bit. You know what I mean? Which was okay, because then I started to play with a lot of great artists, from the Joshua Redmans to the Charles Lloyds to the Dianne Reeves to the Jackie McLeans to the Mulgrew Millers. I mean, the list is quite long. So I started to really develop a name as a bassist in a world that that I didn't expect to make a name for myself. But once you start to be that one of those names that that people call and put you in the same I don't know same words or the same names of people of your generation also, you just got to go with it. You got to go where, okay, this is the path that's been chosen for me. Oh, okay, let me go.
It's it's really interesting, because I've watched that transition happen, and seeing you, growing into the musician that you are, and hey, rightfully so, you've earned it. You've earned it, and you've played with a lot of greats, and you've even stepped out there as a leader and recorded and documented yourself. And I want to talk about that a little bit. And we have a song here that we have the CD here, The Things I Am, that you recorded, and we're going to jump into that. But let's give our audience a little taste of what you can do and have been doing as a leader, if you don't mind us sharing that with you. So we have a recording here from The Things I Am. This is a song that you recorded entitled Fungi Mama. I'd like to hear that.
Yeah. Wow. That's memories right there, boy. That's memories.
Memories.
That was a lifetime ago.
What year was that recorded?
That was recorded, I think 2000, maybe 2006. Yeah,
2006. Okay,
very long time ago when I was a youngster. I didn't have all this. I didn't have all that. Huh?
So that was your first recording as a leader. Who's on that recording?
Well, that particular track was the great Nicholas Payton on trumpet, Ron Blake on tenor saxophone, fellow Virgin Islander, great Greg Hutchinson on drums, and Khalil Kwame Bell, who I haven't seen in forever, playing percussion. And you know, and whistle, as you can hear. When he brought that in there, you know, that took me back to the carnival, right? I mean, I was like, whoa. When he overdubbed that part, because he was doing the percussion, and then he's like, let me put something on top of this, and I was like, it stuck out. I remember that very, very well. But that's a great, you know, big up to the great Lewis Taylor, you know, because he's the one who taught me that song, right?
Yeah.
Because basically, that's one thing I forgot to mention. Before I went to Berkeley, my school was the school of Lewis Taylor, right? Because basically Lewis Taylor, if y'all don't know, is a fabulous pianist, still around, still with us. He was the man. He was, you know, between him and Roan, they were the pianists in St. Thomas. And I came up under him. Basically, he heard me play in the high school jazz band. And as I said, bass players always have opportunities. He was like, I need a bass player. And why don't you come and, you know, play with me a little bit? So the last 3 years of being in high school, he had me under his wing, and he used to pick me up from my parents' house and take me back after the gigs. And anyway, that was one of the songs that I used to play with him all the time.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I remember those nights with Lewis. It's the same thing, you know. You know, we all have similar stories coming from a small island, small town. You know, 14 years old, somebody call you for a gig, and mom is like, "You could play the gig, but you have to pick him up and bring him back home." and I was like, you know, you come home from school, you try to finish up your homework, and you got this gig to go on. And the thing, but yeah, Lois still he's still doing it. You know, what's interesting is that Lois, you know, I'm down at the University of the Virgin. I was teaching, and one of the courses that I teach is a jazz ensemble. Lois comes every Monday and Wednesday night religiously, and sits behind the piano, and he's like, what song you want me to play? And he's like, man, I got to play these tunes, you know. So I admire him, you know, for being up there in age and still putting himself out there. As a student of the music. It's very inspiring. It's very inspiring.
It is. That's why I think I told you. He told me that he was going down there, and he says, Reuben, Dion, they play so fast, man. They play so fast. He said, but I try anyway. I'm like, man, Lewis, that's so great.
It's so beautiful, man. You know, and I'm doing it because I got to work on these students, but he comes in there and he nails it. But the good thing too is the flip side is like he turns around and then shares stuff with them that I didn't even think about. I'm like, because I'm trying to get them to a performance level. He said, hold on one second. He turned to the bass, but play this chord here. And when you do that, don't play that. We'll play this. So he's like dropping knowledge in between all of that at the same time.
It's just weird.
Which is great, man. And you know, again, being in a small community, you could do stuff like that. And it's
no doubt.
I go back to my upbringing and the folks that have helped me, and to see Lois that open and that willing to come and support, you know, says a lot, because you know he's still out there doing it, still gigging on a regular basis, and coming out to the university and encouraging. You know, so the same thing he did for you, you know, umpteen years later, he's still doing it for the generation.
Yeah, big up to Lewis. Big up.
Man. Oh yeah,
appreciate him.
Definitely. You know, there's a lot of musicians here that's still doing their thing. You know, Rowan is still around doing his thing, and a couple of musicians have joined us that came away from here and hidden, and it's just great, man. It's it's a good time to be here, and I'm happy I'm here.
Yeah, really, I'm sure. And, you know, it's, you're adding to that tradition, obviously.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. I'm doing. Honestly, I'm doing my part.
There you go. There you go.
It's so much that needs to be done, but I'm doing my part. You know,
there you
so
go. There you go.
Hopefully, you know, you might come visit us a little more often, and you know.
I'll fit you in my schedule.
You'll send me, but you know, again, but you have been very supportive as well too, because you'll come home and be like, "Hey, this the amp you got? Oh man, you know, we gonna work on something." And next thing I know, amp showed up, and I'm like, "Wow, you know, that's the same thing I used to do from, you know, with high school." You know, Georgia will be like, "We need a trumpet or whatever," and next time I come back home, here's a trumpet.
Yeah,
and it's all part of the process.
Yes,
you know?
Yes, it is.
And we all have to do our part. It doesn't matter where you are and what you're doing. If you have a connection to the culture, to the diaspora, to the village, you know, we're part of that village that raised a child. If you have a connection to that, it's going to always be a need. Somebody's going to always need something. And that little bit that you contribute, you never know. Just like you say, Ron and I coming home when you got to high school and, you know, presenting you with some stuff and it influenced you a certain way. You know, you never know where that inspiration is going to come from. And you've been out here doing your thing with a lot of cats, because they tell me, we were checking out Reuben, we were following Reuben, you know, when they come to my class. So I know you're doing your stuff out here. So that's great, man. But I want to continue with these recordings that you have, because I want our audience to know not only are you a great accompanist and you've played with so many people, but you know, you are a leader in your own right, and you have put out documentation on that level. So we have another song here that excuse me, I would like to play. This one is entitled Walla Walla, and we're going to talk about it after. But what does Walla Walla mean?
Actually, you know what? I'm trying to remember. I'm trying to remember what. I'll get back to you. I gotta Google it again. It's been so long. But it's a very African influenced song. You can hear it, you know, the chant in the beginning, and then, you know, the bass up front, and then it launches into this, you know, this heavy groove. And we'll talk about it after.
We'll talk about it. Okay, so Reuben Rogers, Walla Walla. Enjoy.
Yes, sir.
Yes, yes, I like that. I like that. So enlighten us. Walla Walla.
I had to dig back into my memory, but there's two things to that title. Actually, I get it now. First was when I was young, me and my brother when we used to play and act crazy and whatever, we used to do this thing called walla 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 walla, right? Yeah. That's one, right?
Okay.
I don't know why, but then later on, as became adults, start to read about different things in Africa and different where there's a tribe in Ghana I think it's like the western upper part of Ghana called the Walla people, right? Mm-hmm. So somehow I remember at that time when I was looking for a title, I was like, oh, I remember we used to do that, and then I read about this, and so I was like, all right, let's call it Walla.
Mm-hmm. But it definitely has that Afro-Caribbean diaspora connection. You could hear it with the six definitely is heavy in that drive. Yeah. So I can hear and feel the connection. Mm-hmm. It's really interesting. Folks coming from the Caribbean always kind of draw back to that at some point. How much do you think your Caribbean upbringing plays into your performing?
Well, I mean, a lot of people have asked me that over the years, and the main, I mean, I think the asset that I have, I guess, from all the years of growing up in the Caribbean, that I have taken into any music, especially creative music, improvisational music, whether it be jazz or whatever, is still that sense of groove, right? Mm-hmm. A sense of a foundation and a responsibility that you have in the group, right? Especially coming from the bass chair, I mean, I had that in church. I had that in the reggae band. I had it in the calypso bands. I even had it in the jazz bands, Right. But those influences, whether I realize it or not, I used to tell people I used to go to church in Gamblegada. You know Gamblegada? Remember what Gamblegada is?
Gamblegada. It sounds familiar.
Anyway, it's in Savannah, basically, right?
Okay. Gamblegada.
Right. That was the name of the church. Gamblegada was the name of the church I used to go there. It was, what people would say is the hood, but I didn't think of it then like that at all, right? But it was a soulful area. Let's just say that, right?
Right.
And I remember going, but actually even just walking to church or my family used to maybe park the car down the street, and in the neighborhood there would be all kinds of music playing, from could be reggae, calypso, but also Spanish music, a lot of Spanish music, a lot of merengue to I mean, I can't even remember right now, but rhythms that I heard all my life, even if I wasn't playing it, it was in my being, right? Because it was every few days I was walking through these neighborhoods, right? Going to the church, being that I was a church boy. Hello, so I think, directly and indirectly, even if I wasn't playing the music, I was hearing it, I was hearing it. It was in my soul. So when I did end up playing music, starting to play an instrument, it came natural because I was already soaking it up before. You know what I mean? And that's any music. I didn't realize I was soaking it up and it was going into my pores and all of a sudden coming out. So to answer to bring it back to your question, I think once I started to play other music that weren't Caribbean based, I brought that same kind of respect and energy to whatever I played, a certain kind of foundation, a certain kind of thing, but also a certain kind of sensitivity. I think that the best musicians, from the Caribbean have a certain sensitivity that I think I end up having, as I started to play more jazz music, and made me, very I guess recognizable and with that sensibility and groove, and in the creative music and the creative landscape that I was able to be around. I mean, even just that the tracks you just played, all those musicians on there are people that I started playing with a lot at that time or before, and even to this day, Aaron Goldberg on piano, Greg Hutchison on drums. I mean, I spent a lot of hours. I clocked a lot of hours on the road with those guys.
Right.
We were a band, and we were for many years, and we used to laugh that, like, look, we spent more time together than our girlfriends, our spouses, or whatever,
Right.
It was sad but true, but
that's what being on the road is. That's part of it. But it's a good thing because you could hear it in the music, and that camaraderie, that paying homage to the styles, and being versatile throughout all of that. That's something y'all share in common.
Yeah. I mean, but if anything, I always like to preach now is like nurture your relationships, nurture your musical relationships, especially, because as I said, those guys and countless other musicians around the world, I was able to create beautiful relationships on and off the bandstand, and also I'm fortunate it could reach from Tokyo, it could reach to Italy, it could reach to Taiwan, it could reach to St. Thomas, it could reach to, actually it takes me everywhere. That the relationships that I've built over the years have kept me very busy, very consistently, and because people always say, what you doing? I'm like, I don't remember. I'm gonna do it, and I'm gonna keep on doing it. But it's because it's not just one thing, because people associate with one thing. I'm playing with this one band, I'm doing this.
Right.
I've been very fortunate to carve my a path from the relationships that I've built over the 30 years, that it's not, today's gonna be this, next week it's gonna be this, the next month it's gonna be this, next is gonna be this, so nurture those relationships, y'all.
Oh yeah, and it's a beautiful thing. A lot of people don't really see it as, like, what you do on the bandstand. It's even more equally, if not more, what you do off the bandstand. Because, like you say, you're on the road traveling with these people. You're on the bandstand for an hour and a half show, but you're in a train, a plane, a car, a boat, all day with them. So it's important to it builds, and it talks about who you are, the things I am.
Hello. Good and bad.
Good and bad.
Right.
So we're going to continue with that being said, the things I am. Mr. Reuben Rogers here. You could tell we go back. We're having a lot of fun. There's a lot of things we're not saying also, but we're going to cut it off after the show.
Yeah, right.
Yep. But one of the compositions that you wrote, and I remember when you first brought it to the 21st Century Band, we played it. It was a reflection of who you are, and the title of the song is called "The Things I Am." And just you don't have to talk about the song, just the title. What's just give us the background behind the title.
Well, I mean, it's obviously my roots, it actually, probably since I've no, that's not true. I've played in some configurations where I played a lot of reggae stuff, but really and truly, the only time I actually play reggae music is with the 21st Century Band these days, right? So I think so I think when I did the record, I wanted to pay ode to my roots, to who, really, this is, even though I'm playing mostly creative, I like to call it creative music, improvisational music, but this is still my roots. It's still a part of who I am. So that's why I, penned this composition at that time, because, it's all about snapshots. Recordings are snapshots in the moment that you recorded it. You know what I mean? And that's what I wanted to say at that time.
Okay. Well, hey, we're going to hear what you have to say. Reuben Rogers, The Things I Am.
Get it.
Yeah. That's one of my favorites, man. I love that tune. The things I am.
Oh, good times, good times. You know, we look a little young then too, right? I mean, how long ago was that? That was what, 10 years ago, something like that? 9 years ago?
Something like that. Yeah.
Maybe a little less, but that was the last time I wore a suit, probably. So
all good, man. All good.
That's great.
It's really great to see and hear, you perform with your project, The Things I Am, the CD that came out a couple years ago. And I know you're constantly working on a number of projects and doing great things with other folks. One of the things I would like to do is have you come back to talk about future projects.
Okay.
Unfortunately, we're running out. It's that time. We can stay.
I got you. I got you.
Well,
what I'd like to say, yeah, I will be probably doing another project after many years of not really wanting to do that. I've always said, I like to have my body of work speak for itself, and that's what I pretty much have done the past 20 or since last I recorded, maybe 20 years. I mean, I've played on countless projects, over 300 albums, jingles, I don't know, recordings that people don't even know that I'm the ghost bass player. I've done a lot of projects, but lately I've been thinking, it's time to do not my own project, just because I've been writing music and it's time to put out into the world, because your music, whenever you record, especially as a jazz musician, I think a snapshot of what your life was at that moment. You know what I mean? So that was then. It's time for definitely something, in 2024, 25, we'll see,
Yeah, because your life has changed a lot since then.
Oh yeah. But I said, there's still a body of work. I've always feel you're judged by the body of work when you die. You know what I mean? So hopefully I'm judged for it while I'm living too. We all are, right?
That's great. Well, you shared a wealth of information with our audience, and I'm sure they will be Googling you and checking you out and checking into Walla Walla, making sure you're talking about the right African tribe.
I know, right? That's okay.
It's been an honor and a pleasure, man, having you. Thank you for being so gracious and joining us, and thank you for your continued support and music, great music, and support for the students of the Virgin Islands, the folks of the Virgin, always contributing back to your hometown. But continued success to you in all of your endeavors.
And to you, brother, I appreciate you. Thank you for setting me on my path, because you are one of my mentors, one of the people I owe a lot to for having the life that I have right now. For real. And you have doing a great job with this programming and everything you're doing. I appreciate you, brother. Definitely.
Thank you, man. Mr. Reuben Rogers, The Things I Am. Thank you for joining us. We look forward to having a wonderful, having another great presentation next week with pianist Mr. Alex Wilson joining us, and he has a great he has a wealth of information to share. So join us next week on Sounds of the Diaspora, Artist to Artist Conversation with Dion Parson, and we'll be joined by Mr. Alex Wilson. Take care.